Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, I want to talk about baiting deer, and the reason I want to talk about it is because it's going through social media big time right now, and it's something typical that, hunters and land managers and things like to do. And that's starting in like December, January, February, and that's, you know, um, people want to bait deer because they think that deer need our help. And I just want to talk about a little bit about that today. There's a right way, there's a wrong way to do it, and I'm going to give you some examples and some alternative options to consider. Now, I say this all the time, and that's deer, a wild deer, does not need our help. Deer, they know how to survive, they know how to conserve energy, they know how to feed, and they just know how to survive. It's what they're born to do. They are born to survive and eat. That's what they do 24/7. um I used to think that deer would eat 4 to 6 pounds of food per day, but there's new research out there that say it could be more. And I actually, I tend to believe that. They're saying it could be 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds of food per day, depending how old the deer is, how much it weighs, and how much food is actually available, of course. But it could be higher than 4 to 5 pounds of food per day. Times that by how many deer you have on your property, within a 1 to 2 mile radius. That's a lot of food, right? So in the wintertime, what we're getting into, we're about mid-December right now, and what that means is food is becoming limited as far as green and growing goes. Now, what deer do have and what they survive on naturally is you still have some acorns left over, possibly. You have woody browse. People forget that deer live on woody browse in the wintertime. In the spring and summer, when you have the leaves, the green and growing leaves, deer consume that, right? It's a transition period. Each season offers a different variety of food to the wildlife. Now, I've been to many trade shows. I get asked this all the time, and people like, you tell people like, "Hey, deer eat natural browse," and they look at you like you have four eyes, and they're like, "What do you mean natural browse? Like, come on, man! Like, that's some basic stuff." Deer eat natural browse. Bushes, briars, shrubs, acorns, oaks, um, fruits, nuts, berries, things that we plant, as far as, soybeans, uh, wheat, oats, and rye, and clovers. All this stuff is green and growing, right? When those leaves fall off, they transition to the woody stem part. That's what they do. That's the way nature intended. So deer in that aspect doesn't need our help. Now, when it gets really cold, what do? They don't move as much. They hunker down. They get into, spruces and pines and get out of the wind and preserve energy and preserve calories because the food is limited. Yeah. And they're very cold. So they get on the sunny side. They hit the fields midday when the sun is at its highest. And that's what they do, right? That's what they're born to do. Now, this time of year, December, January, February, people think that deer need our help, and they go to their store and they buy pallets of corn and they start dumping it out. Now, it's my opinion. My opinion only. You can research it, have your own opinion. Everybody's has their own, right? I don't think deer are meant to eat corn at all. Some people disagree with that. Some people actually agree with it. Me personally, I don't think they're meant to consume corn. And obviously they eat it because it's like candy to them, right? So, one of the worst things you can do is not feed deer at all, then all of a sudden dump hundreds of pounds of corn on the ground or a feed or whatever, and have those deer consume that, because what happens is their body's not designed to digest corn, just like a cow. Cows are not meant to eat corn. It's not natural to them. So they have to build up their digestive system, over time, to help them be able to digest it. Bacteria and enzymes and different different things like that can help them digest it. Now, especially if you're in an area that doesn't have any greens left over, that's full of moisture content to help them wash it down, it's very bad. If you the way you should do it is, if you're doing it, is introduce it to them slowly, especially in areas where they don't have ag fields. If there's no corn around, no ag, then all of a sudden, boom, you introduce that grain as a corn, and you could kill the deer. It People don't think that it happens, but it really does. It creates a situation, it's called acidosis. It really messes up their digestive system. So if you're doing it, you want to start out super slow. I'm not doing it at all with corn. I'm not saying that I'm not ever going to do it again, but I've gotten away from that. If you're going to do it, I may do it like a 50-50 split with roasted soybeans and corn, a little bit like something like that ratio, 50-50, 75-25, something like that. I may do that in the future, who knows. But the point of this is, be careful what you're doing with feeding deer, because a wild animal, guys, nobody knows 100% what they need. Nobody knows 100% on what they should and shouldn't eat. So, but the fact is, corn is very hard on their digestive system, so be careful with it. If you're using the mineral blocks and the salt blocks, people want to do this time of year because they think that deer need our help. They don't. There's a wrong way and a proper way to do things. Corn and those supplemental things in that nature, corn blocks and things, is not the proper way. The real way, the most beneficial way, is you have two ways. One is in areas that you have a select cut and tons of hinge cutting and hack and squirt methods that allow sun to hit the forest floor. Allow all that regrowth, the woody stems, briars, and all that. That's one of the best ways, and it's because you're increasing food in the natural way, as nature intended, right? As food that deer consume naturally. The second way to do it is to prepare your food plots in the late summer, early fall in the proper manner by planting the proper things, which is wheat, oats, and rye. Now, oats is going to pretty much die off after our first few frosts. Then you have your wheat and rye that takes over, that will provide many months. I mean, if you go far up north, you may lose maybe a month out of the entire year where there's no food through the winter. Kind of further, you drop down south a little bit, you're going to have 12 months of food, right? So when you plant it, and say you plant it in September, you're going to have food October, November, December, January. There may be that small period where it's so cold, it's not going to grow anymore. Whatever's left over, they're going to consume. But then you hit February and March, and things start to green up again. And wheat and oats, or wheat and rye, will be the very first thing that greens up in the wintertime before your browse and even clover. So it's very beneficial to plant. What I plant is at a ratio of the three. I do 100 pounds of wheat, 50 pounds of rye, and 50 pounds of oats. So I'm adding 200 pounds of grain seed per acre. 100 pounds of wheat, 50 pounds of rye, and 50 pounds of oats. Gives you 200 pounds of seed per acre. If you still have spots left over after it establishes in 4 weeks, 5 weeks, just overseed it with more rye, or wheat or rye, doesn't really matter. And then it'll fill in those gaps, right? So that's the proper way to feed deer throughout the winter. Again, they don't need our help. Deer get bigger by birthdays and genetics and food value. Now, in areas where there's limited food, the more your supplemental program will benefit. In areas that have plenty of food, the least your supplemental program is going to benefit the deer. Does that make sense? So, yeah, we can help provide them with a little bit more food, in times when it's needed, as long as it's high quality. Soil samples and the soil's corrected, pH and fertility levels and all that all adds up. Micronutrients, that all builds up in that deer system. And it's always, no matter what you do, it's always what you do this year benefits next year. So plant the right things, throughout the fall, and don't waste your money. There's so much gimmicks, and the hunting industry has made us believe that we need to buy these blocks and these bags of corn and different powders and pellets and this and this and this because it's sales, right? It's called marketing, right? 98% of it is gimmicks. They want you to believe that because they have to make sales, right? It's a wild animal. Now, ask yourself this. By dumping out corn on the ground, do you really think that you're going to benefit a wild, free-ranging deer? Ask yourself that. And the answer is probably not. Does it going to do something? Maybe like a 0.5% of some kind of benefit to the deer. Maybe. Nobody knows. Again, nobody knows what they need 100%. Nobody knows what they don't need 100%. Right? There's got to be a balance. But if you go by Mother Nature, okay, that's the best, right? Food plots, adding more green and growing plants is the way to go. Now, if you can't do that, not everybody can plant food plots, right? I'm not, sometimes you can't. If you're going to feed corn, do a 50-50 mix of roasted soybeans, then corn, 50-50. Introduce it very slowly. I'm telling you, introduce it very slowly and continue that program for as many months out of the year as possible. Don't start it, instantly and then stop it instantly. Gradually work your way into it and do it that way. If you really think you need to do something, my opinion, I would just tell you to save your money. You're not going to really see much of a difference with it. You are going to see more of a difference with the roasted soybeans over the corn. So pay attention. Ask yourself again, am I really going to benefit that wild free-ranging deer that eats 4, 5, 6, 7 pounds, 8 pounds of food per day? Think about that, guys. See you on the next one.